Noah had always prided himself on being an observant man. In business, it had served him well. Reading between the lines, spotting inconsistencies, sensing when a deal wasn't as good as it seemed. It was a skill that had taken years to hone, one that had saved him from countless mistakes. But as he stood in the kitchen, watching Sarah hum to herself while rinsing out her coffee cup, he realized something unsettling. He had never once thought to apply that skill to his own marriage. Until now, Sarah had never been the outdoorsy type. She preferred vacations in bustling cities, art galleries, and fine dining over anything remotely rugged. Even when they'd taken trips to the coast, she barely set foot in the water, claiming she didn't like how the sand clung to her feet. So, when she suddenly announced that she had signed up for sailing lessons, Noah was surprised, to say the least. "I just feel like I've been missing out," she had said, her voice light, almost rehearsed. "You know, I've always loved the ocean." That was the first red flag. Noah had been married to Sarah for 15 years. In all that time, she had never once mentioned a love for the ocean. If anything, she had actively avoided it. He remembered a trip to Miami where he had practically begged her to go on a boat tour with him. She had laughed, wrinkled her nose, and said, "No way, I'll get seasick just looking at the waves." And yet, here she was, signing up for weekend lessons like it was a lifelong dream. His unease only grew over the next few weeks. At first, she would come home giddy, talking about how much she was learning, the knots, the terminology, the way the wind played with the sails. But when Noah asked for details, she was vague. "Oh, you wouldn't understand all the technical stuff," she had said once, waving a hand dismissively. That was red flag number 2. Sarah loved talking. When she was excited about something, she went into detail, explaining things until Noah had no choice but to feign understanding. He had endured endless rants about books, interior design trends, and even the intricate plot twists of the TV shows she loved. Yet now, with something as thrilling as learning to sail, she was suddenly evasive? Then came the changes in her routine. She started dressing differently for these so-called lessons. Lighter clothes, more flattering outfits. She spent longer in the mirror before leaving, something she never did when she used to go to her old yoga classes. Noah noticed her phone was always face down on the counter when she was home. She started leaving earlier than necessary and coming back a little later each time, always with a rehearsed excuse. The final straw came one evening when she absent-mindedly mentioned her instructor. "Luke, he's a great teacher," she had said, tucking her hair behind her ear in that way she did when she was nervous. "Very experienced." There was something in her tone, a subtle shift, and that was when Noah knew. Sarah wasn't in love with the ocean. She was in love with something or someone else. That weekend, while she thought he was at home watching the game, Noah drove to the marina. It was time to see the truth for himself. The marina stretched out before Noah in a dazzling display of calm waters and docked boats, their masts swaying gently with the breeze. It was a crisp Saturday morning, the kind of day that might have once felt refreshing, but now the air felt charged with unease. He had parked his car a block away, just out of sight, and walked the rest of the way with his hands stuffed in his pockets, his mind racing. He wasn't the kind of man who jumped to conclusions. Over 15 years of marriage, he had trusted Sarah implicitly, never once suspecting her of deceit. But now every instinct told him he wasn't being paranoid. Something was off, and he needed proof. The marina was more active than he'd expected. Couples strolled along the docks, groups of friends chatted near the rental kiosks, and a few novice sailors were already setting up their boats for the day's lessons. Noah scanned the area carefully, looking for Sarah. Then he saw her. She wasn't standing by a training vessel, adjusting ropes or listening to an instructor. Instead, she was perched on the edge of a docked boat, her legs tucked under her, smiling up at a man who stood close beside her. "Luke?" Noah recognized him instantly. He was taller than expected, his sun-bleached hair falling lazily over his forehead, his build lean but strong, the kind of man who looked like he belonged on the water. He exuded the kind of effortless confidence Noah had always found vaguely irritating in men who spent too much time outdoors. But it wasn't Luke's presence that set Noah's blood boiling. It was Sarah's expression. She was laughing at something Luke had said, her head tilting back just slightly, her fingers lightly tracing patterns on the wooden bench beside her. Noah knew that look. It was the same look she had given him in the early years of their marriage, back when they used to sneak out for late-night drives and talk until sunrise. It was the look she used to reserve for him. Noah's grip tightened around his phone as he discreetly pulled it from his pocket, angling the camera just right to capture the scene. The lens focused in on Sarah's smile, the way she leaned into Luke, her hand resting lightly on his arm. Not exactly the posture of a woman engrossed in sailing techniques. He clicked a few photos, then switched to video. Sarah's voice carried through the air, mingling with the gentle sounds of the marina. "You know, I never thought I'd love the ocean this much," she said, her tone soft, almost intimate. Luke grinned, nudging her knee with his own. "Told you I'd make you fall in love with it." Something inside Noah snapped. There it was, clear as day. She hadn't fallen in love with the ocean. She had fallen in love with the man teaching her how to navigate it. His fingers tightened around his phone, but he forced himself to stay still, to stay rational. He had come here for proof, and now he had it. Confronting them in the middle of the marina would accomplish nothing. Sarah would deny, Luke would probably smirk, and Noah would be the one looking unhinged. So he did what he did best. He waited, standing in the shadows. He observed them without interference, taking in every stolen glance, every lingering touch, every whisper exchanged between them. Luke's hand brushed against Sarah's as he passed her a water bottle, and she didn't pull away. If anything, she leaned in just a little closer. Noah swallowed the lump rising in his throat. The confirmation felt like a gut punch. Even though he had suspected it all along, it was one thing to have doubts, to suspect something wasn't right, but seeing it play out in real time, that was something else entirely. He stayed long enough to watch Luke stand up and offer Sarah his hand, pulling her effortlessly to her feet. She giggled, as she steadied herself against him, her hands lingering on his chest for a moment longer than necessary. Then, without a care in the world, they walked toward one of the smaller boats tied to the dock. Luke untied the ropes, and Sarah climbed aboard like she had done it 100 times before. That was when it hit Noah. She had done this before. All the weekends, all the late returns, the vague excuses. This wasn't new. It had been happening right under his nose, and he had been too blind to see it. He exhaled slowly, forcing himself to step away before his presence was noticed. As he made his way back toward his car, he couldn't help but glance down at his phone. The images and videos stared back at him. Undeniable proof of Sarah's betrayal. She thought the open water would keep her secret safe. But she had forgotten one crucial detail. The tide always turns, and Noah was about to make sure she felt every crashing wave of the storm that was coming. Noah sat at the kitchen table, his fingers tracing absent patterns on the cool surface of his coffee mug. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that settled before a storm. He had spent the past few hours carefully going over the evidence on his phone, replaying the video, swiping through the damning pictures. Each image seared itself into his mind, branding his thoughts with the undeniable truth. Sarah had lied. Noah wasn't impulsive. He didn't believe in heated arguments or throwing accusations in the middle of public places. Confrontations, he had learned, were most effective when they were planned, controlled. Let the other person dig their own grave before handing them the shovel. So, he waited. When Sarah finally came home that evening, she was glowing. "Hey, babe." She walked in, dropping her bag on the counter, stretching like she had spent the day doing something invigorating. "You wouldn't believe how amazing today's lesson was. We finally took the boat out into open water. It was incredible." Noah studied her, his face carefully neutral. She didn't even look guilty. Sarah moved toward the fridge, grabbing a bottle of water. "I wish you could have been there," she continued, twisting off the cap. "It was so peaceful. Just me, the ocean, and the wind in my hair." "Lies." Noah leaned back in his chair. "Just you?" Sarah paused for half a second before taking a sip of her water. "Well, Luke was there, obviously. He's my instructor, after all." She let out a small laugh. "He's so patient with me. I swear, I've never met someone who loves sailing as much as he does." There it was, that casual slip. The way her lips curled into a soft smile at the mention of his name. The way she didn't even hesitate before speaking about him. like he was just a friendly teacher and not the man she was sneaking around with. Noah nodded slowly. Yeah. He seemed really invested in your lessons when I saw you two together earlier. The smile froze on Sarah's face. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her eyes. What do you mean? Noah pulled out his phone, placing it on the table between them. The screen lit up, the paused video showing Sarah sitting too close to Luke on that docked boat, laughing at something he said. Her hand was resting on his arm, fingers grazing the fabric of his shirt. Sarah's face paled. No, he pressed play. Her own voice filled the room. I never thought I'd love the ocean this much. Told you I'd make you fall in love with it. Silence. Noah let the words linger, let the air grow heavier with the weight of her betrayal. He watched as Sarah's mouth opened, then closed, as if she was trying to grasp for the right excuse, the right way to manipulate her way out of this. He beat her to it. Tell me, Sarah. His voice was dangerously calm. Which part of your sailing lesson involves giggling like a schoolgirl and holding your instructor's hand? Sarah inhaled sharply, setting down the water bottle with a deliberate slowness. Noah, it's not what it looks like, he scoffed. That's original. She hesitated. I didn't want to tell you because I knew you'd misunderstand. Luke and we're just friends. He's been helping me get comfortable with the water, that's all. Just friends, Noah echoed. He swiped to the next photo, one where Luke's hand was resting on Sarah's lower back as he guided her onto the boat. Explain this, then. Sarah's jaw tensed. It's nothing. Nothing? He let out a dry laugh. Sarah, I watched you today. You weren't learning how to sail. You were sitting there, laughing, flirting with him like a lovesick teenager. Don't insult me by pretending I didn't see what I saw. Her expression hardened. You were spying on me? Don't turn this around on me, Noah shot back. You lied, over and over again, and now you're mad that you got caught? Sarah's hands curled into fists. You don't understand. No, Noah cut her off, I understand perfectly. You've been sneaking around behind my back using sailing lessons as a cover. What I don't understand is why you thought I wouldn't find out. She exhaled shakily, crossing her arms. I didn't cheat, Noah. Then why hide it? Sarah hesitated for a fraction too long, and that was all the answer he needed. Noah pushed his chair back and stood, shaking his head. You know what? I don't even need you to admit it. I have all the proof I need. And tomorrow, so will everyone else. Her eyes widened. What? What does that mean? Noah's voice was eerily calm. It means I'm not going to be the one carrying your secret, Sarah. Our family, our friends, they're going to know the truth. Noah, please. She stepped forward, reaching for him, but he moved back. We can talk about this. I made a mistake, but it didn't mean anything. It was just harmless flirting. Harmless. The word burned in his chest. Harmless, he repeated. Would you call it harmless if I were the one meeting up with another woman every weekend, holding her hand, whispering to her, lying to you about where I was? Sarah's throat bobbed as she swallowed. You made your choice, Noah said. Now you get to live with it. She opened her mouth to argue, but the look in his eyes made her stop. There was nothing left to say. The foundation of their marriage had cracked, and no amount of desperate words could patch it up. Noah turned and walked toward the stairs, his heart pounding as Sarah stood frozen in place. Tomorrow, the fallout would begin, and for the first time in a long time, Noah wasn't afraid of what came next. Noah barely slept that night. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to Sarah's restless movements on the other side of the house. She had taken a blanket to the couch after their confrontation, but every so often he heard her shifting, sighing, as if trying to will herself into sleep. But how could she sleep? Her world was about to crash around her, and she had no idea just how bad the storm would be. By morning, Noah had made his decision. He wasn't going to let Sarah spin this into some misunderstanding. He had been humiliated enough. He had wasted enough time wondering how long this had been going on, how many times she had gone behind his back while still sharing a bed with him. No more. It was time for the truth to come out. Noah started with the group chat, a mix of mutual friends, Sarah's sister, and a few people from his side of the family. The message was short, clear, and left no room for misinterpretation. Hey everyone, I just wanted to share something before rumors start. Sarah has been lying to me about an affair with her sailing instructor. I caught them together and I have proof. Just letting you all know because I won't be keeping this secret for her. She can explain herself if she wants, but I won't be staying in this marriage. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. Almost immediately, notifications flooded in. Sarah, of course, remained silent. Noah sat back and watched the fallout unfold. He imagined Sarah's phone lighting up from the other room, her pulse racing as she read message after message. People asking if it was true, if she had really been so careless, so selfish. She had always cared about appearances. She prided herself on being the perfect wife, the charming woman who had it all together. Now, that image was burning, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. After breakfast, Noah drove back to the marina, not because he wanted a confrontation. No, he wanted something better.
The morning was crisp, the scent of salt thick in the air. Luke was already there, prepping one of the boats with another student, acting as if nothing had changed. Noah walked straight up to the marina office instead. The manager, an older man named Greg, recognized him instantly. "Hey, Noah," Greg said, leaning against the counter. "Sarah's not here yet. You need something?" Noah pulled out his phone and placed it on the counter. He tapped the screen, bringing up the video of Sarah and Luke on the docked boat. Greg's brows furrowed as he watched. "I just thought you should know," Noah said casually. "This is what your instructor has been up to during lessons. If he's doing this with my wife, I wonder how many other students he's mentoring." Greg's expression darkened. "Son of a bitch," he muttered under his breath. "This is exactly the kind of unprofessional crap I don't tolerate." Noah crossed his arms. Figured you wouldn't want someone like that representing your business." Greg looked up, jaw tight. "I'll handle it." Oh nodded. As he turned to leave, he caught sight of Luke, still blissfully unaware.
Not for long. By the time Noah got home, Sarah was waiting for him. She stood near the kitchen counter, her arms crossed, her eyes red-rimmed from either lack of sleep or crying. Maybe both. "Noah," she started, her voice thick with something between anger and desperation. "You told everyone?"
He tossed his keys onto the table. "Yeah."
She let out a shaky breath. "I can't believe you'd do this to me." He let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "You can't believe I would do this to you." He stepped closer, his eyes cold. "You lied to me. You cheated. You snuck around behind my back for weeks, maybe longer. And now you're mad that people know?" Sarah clenched her jaw. "It wasn't like that." "Then tell me what it was like, Sarah." His voice was eerily calm. "Explain to me how I misunderstood you running around with another man behind my back." She looked away, her hands tightening into fists. Noah shook his head. "You're not sorry you did it. You're sorry you got caught." Sarah's eyes snapped back to his. "And you're just so perfect, aren't you? You're so busy playing the victim, but you were never there for me, Noah. You never noticed when I was unhappy. You never—" "Don't." He cut her off, his tone sharp. "Don't you dare try to turn this on me. If you were unhappy, you should have talked to me. You should have told me instead of sneaking around and making me look like a fool." She swallowed hard, her lower lip trembling.
"I loved you, Sarah," Noah said, his voice quieter now, almost tired. "I would have done anything for you. But you threw that away."
Silence stretched between them. Finally, Sarah let out a broken whisper. "So what now?" Noah exhaled slowly. "I'm filing for divorce." Her breath hitched. "Noah, wait." "No." His voice was firm. "Final. I deserve better than this." Sarah stood there, frozen, as he turned and walked away. This time, he wasn't the one left behind. In the days that followed, the fallout only grew worse for Sarah. Word spread quickly. Some friends cut her off entirely. Her sister, Emily, sent Noah a long message apologizing for what had happened, saying she had no idea Sarah was capable of doing something like this. Even Karen, Sarah's closest friend, messaged him privately, saying she was disappointed in her. And Luke?
He lost his job at the marina.
Greg made sure of that. Noah heard through a mutual acquaintance that Luke had tried to fight it, but there was no defending himself against the evidence. His reputation was shot, and without the marina job, his little sailing dream started sinking fast. Sarah, humiliated, tried to salvage her life, but Noah had no interest in what happened to her anymore, because for the first time in a long time, he was free. A week after filing for divorce, Noah booked himself a sailing trip. Real one. As he stepped onto the boat, feeling the salt air against his skin, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. No baggage, no deceit, just him, the open water, and the endless horizon ahead. And for the first time in years,
He actually did love the ocean.
the divorce papers were signed a month later. Noah hadn't expected Sarah to fight it. What argument could she even make? She had no leverage, no moral ground to stand on. Yet, she tried. At first, she begged. She apologized in long-winded messages, voicemails filled with regret and tearful pleas. She insisted it hadn't meant anything, that she had just been caught up in the moment, that she still loved him. Noah didn't respond. Then, when she realized he wasn't going to budge, the anger set in. She accused him of humiliating her, of making her look like the villain. She claimed he had turned everyone against her, that she had lost friends, respect, even her sense of self because of what he did.
Noah found it almost laughable. Sarah had written her own downfall. He had simply refused to cover it up for her. When she saw there was no chance of reconciliation, she finally stopped calling. She signed the papers with a tight jaw and shaking hands, and when she walked out of his life for the last time, Noah felt nothing but relief. It was strange, waking up alone in the house they had once shared. The absence of Sarah's presence should have felt like a void, but instead it felt like a breath of fresh air. No more tension, no more lies, no more pretending things were fine when they weren't. For the first time in years, Noah didn't feel like he was waiting for the other shoe to drop. He focused on himself, something he hadn't done in a long time. He started hitting the gym again, reclaiming a part of himself he had let go in the last few years. He went out with friends more, reconnecting with people who had slowly drifted away while he had been too distracted with his failing marriage to notice. Most importantly, he stopped wondering where Sarah was, what she was doing, and who she was with, because none of that mattered anymore. Sarah, however, wasn't as lucky. Word spread fast in their social circle. The people who once admired her as the perfect wife now saw her for who she really was. Friends she had known for years distanced themselves. Even her own sister, Emily, kept things cool and distant, not wanting to be associated with her drama. And Luke, he was worse off than Sarah. After losing his job at the marina, he struggled to find work in the same industry. No reputable sailing school wanted an instructor with a reputation for seducing married students. The scandal had followed him, making it nearly impossible for him to move on without its shadow looming over him. Sarah had thrown away her marriage for a man who now wanted nothing to do with her. She had burned her bridges, and now she was left standing in the ashes. Noah never reached out to her, never checked in to see how she was doing. Whatever happened to Sarah was her own problem. She had made her choices. Now she had to live with them. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Noah booked another sailing trip, not out of bitterness, not to prove anything, just because he wanted to. He had spent so much time associating the ocean with betrayal that he had almost forgotten its beauty. He had let Sarah's lies taint something that had nothing to do with her. Not anymore. As he stepped onto the boat, feeling the warmth of the sun against his skin, he took a deep breath. The scent of salt filled his lungs, crisp and clean. The water stretched out endlessly before him, vast and full of possibility. For the first time in years, there was nothing holding him back. No baggage, no betrayal, just the open sea and the future ahead. And this time, he was the one steering.